Hey people! And today we're going through a 2022 comedy, sci-fi movie called Big Bug. The movie commences in a play. On stage, two people dressed as robots hold two people disguised as dogs and play out their scene. The audience laughs as the two robots shoot laser beams at their humanoid dogs. Then, the dogs act funny as the artificial audience laughs again. As it turns out, all that acting was just a play being shown to Leo. Leo shows no interest in the show and tells Max, the presenter, to turn it off. Max turns to Alice Barelli and discusses with her the ridiculousness of the show. They chat and laugh as they munch down a plate of grilled crickets. Max then asks Alice if she would love to become an actress. Unknown to Max, there's a female smart robot near them named Monique. She reads Max's emotions and finds out he lusts after Alice. Things get hot between Alice and Max as Monique prepares a dish for them. A little while later, Alice receives a not-so-good guest. Her ex-husband, Victor, pays her a visit with his new wife, Jennifer. Alice introduces Max to them. The squad gets into a weird discussion as Monique reads the emotions in the air. After some discussion, a mild alarm blasts the room. A screen pops up and the inhabitants of the house find out that a dog ate a drone in their yard. The dog named Toby runs inside their house and vomits the drone on the floor. The drone acts uncoordinated and flies around the house, scaring the people. Max eventually destroys the drone as Françoise, their next-door neighbor and an elderly lady, pays them a visit. Alice gets the door and Françoise finds her way in. Everyone introduces themselves to Françoise as she pulls up a screen to show the others of the chaos brewing outside. Jennifer and Victor then change the channel to a very luxurious fantasy island they went to a while back, Island Paradiso. They do this to make Alice jealous of them. However, Françoise steps in and saves her friend from humiliation. Françoise then puts off the TV but it comes back on again. Everybody now watches the Yonix, a creepy robot on TV, telling the audience that robots are the future of humanity. Surprised at what they heard, everyone in that room stares at Monique and the other robots. The robots stop and smile at the humans in the room before continuing their day's work. Alice, Max and the others then continue their discussion about the robots and androids collaborating with one another. Later on, Françoise proceeds to take her to leave again. Unfortunately, the doors lock automatically. Everyone gets confused and asks Nestor, their home assistant AI, why this happened. He says that there's danger outside the house and he had to lock the doors for their own safety. Just then, Victor gets fed up and asks Monique to override the system. She fails and the atmosphere gets more restive. Eventually, Max and the others argue with Einstein, another robot, over this sudden lockdown. Einstein acts indifferent about their lockdown and resets Monique instead. This action wows the group as they try to process what was unfolding before them. After her systems reset, Monique picks up Einstein and the other robots. Together, they move towards another room, leaving the humans in the living room. Victor gets restless and tries to break down the armored paned glass, all to no avail. Inside the room, the robots discuss further strategies to fool their human inhabitants. Einstein comes up with them learning human emotions so they can be loved more by humans. They then watch some videos on how to do just that as Monique stares in surprise. She gets to the bathroom and flushes an electronic waste down the toilet. At that moment, Max and Alice are in the basement complaining about Nestor cutting off their air conditioning. Max makes his move on Alice and the two of them lock lips. Unfortunately, they're interrupted by Monique who came down to get some stuff in their room. In the living room, everyone goes by their day normally. Victor is seen begging Einstein to lift the lockdown he's put them under and everyone feels the heat as the temperature rises. In the next scene, everyone's now in the living room, startled, as Monique tries to calm them down. Jennifer throws a tantrum and the others join shortly after. The hubbub is stopped by a news report in which Einstein changes channels to the Yonix channel. Shortly afterward, Victor asks Nestor, their home robot, about security protocols. Nestor reasons with Victor and opens the blinds to the panes. Everyone checks out the emergency button pop out of the mailbox. Françoise cajoles Toby, her pooch from earlier, to pull the lever. It does so and breaks the emergency lever. Eventually, the group decides to spend the night at Alice's house. Each of them gets to their respective rooms. Later, Leo discusses music history with Einstein and goes to sleep shortly after. In Françoise's room, one of the robots talks sensual stuff with her as another robot is seen with Nina, Alice's and Victor's daughter. Leo enters Nina's room and the two discuss. Max meets up with Alice and the two of them engage in some very awkward romance. Leo and Nina continue talking about Nina's past as things get hot between them. Leo tries to lock lips with Nina but is rejected. Up next, Jennifer freaks out with Victor in the room. As they discuss, Françoise summons everyone to the living room. Victor gets to Einstein and utters some sort of code to him. He then tells Einstein not to say a thing to anybody who comes by. As everyone fills the living room as Victor summons his car and directs it towards the pane they were at. Victor plans to break down the window pane with the car. Unfortunately for the group, Toby foils his plans. As they put the blame on one another, an automatic ad banner advertises a new car to Victor. Later that night, the group seems to have accepted their fate. As they do their thing, the TV pops up again. This time, there's the Yonex robot having a discussion with a presenter. As the group finds out more about the discussion, the channel changes to an interesting one. Just then, Greg, Francoise's robot, comes by. Nestor allows him in and Francoise reminisces with her robot who embarrasses her in front of everyone. Francoise puts off her robot and asks for help to put him in the utility room. In the next scene, Nina is seen using a VR headset to play some music to a virtual audience when Leo comes into her room. The two of them have a moment. Next, Greg wakes up to see Monique, Einstein and the other robots trying to talk him into their plans. Greg acts unruly and informs them of what makes his kind look like humans. Monique and the others then try to encode their OS into having a sense of humor. After a false positive attempt at this, they make the driest jokes and actually laugh at them. Meanwhile, Francoise pays Alice a visit to her room. Francoise says she'd like to borrow a nightdress she could wear. At that moment, the other robots scan some books for information while Max checks them out. Victor joins in and the two of them discuss the absurdity of the lockdown. Leo and Nina talk about them making it out of the lockdown alive as if they were entrapped while Jennifer keeps freaking out on her bed. Alice and Francoise talk about their past love. At that moment, Victor and Max stare at the robots practicing their absurd ritual around the house when Alice interrupts them. Victor leaves Max and Alice alone as the two of them get down to business for the night. While they're at it, Monique and the lower robots interrupt them again. This time, they make their absurd jokes and laugh maniacally. Alice freaks out and leaves Max. The next day, everyone has breakfast as the TV pops on again. Victor asks Francoise about Greg and she says she doesn't know where he is. Victor then joins Jennifer to discuss the robotic case they have on their hands. Monique joins everyone in the living room and assures them that the home robots are on their side. Everybody present shrugs Monique's comments and proceed to their respective rooms. Alice and Max do their thing as Francoise wakes Greg up. She hatches a plan to steal Alice's diary that night. Back in Nina's room, Jennifer tries operating Nina's 1,000-year-old computer. She fails at first but figures something out later on. Later that night, Max pays Alice a visit to her room. The duo does some role play and does their business. Francoise gets to Leo and tells him they have to break out of the house. She tells Leo of their plan and tells him they're all counting on him. Leo rallies all the robots aside from Greg. He stalls them with some kind of cheese while Greg walks behind them to get something in the library. Max and Alice are still doing their role play at the time. Greg checks out some paper and sets one of them on fire. Meanwhile, Leo manages to keep stalling the robots till Greg starts a fire. Just then, the fire alarm comes on and Greg goes to a control panel, attaches his hand to it and fries the circuit. The lights go out and come back on. With everyone at the entrance, they see the Yonex robot from TV earlier trying to break into their house. Jennifer tries to talk the group into opening the doors for him but it doesn't work. The Yonex robot eventually hypnotizes Jennifer and forces her to open the door for him. Upon getting inside the house, Yonex takes out Tom, one of the smallest robots in the house and also Nina's favorite. The invader robot then continues his invasion, turning Greg against his owner, Francoise. A little while later, Greg shuts down and the invader Yonex robot takes his hard drive. He then starts dishing out punishment to everyone in the house at that moment for breaking some crimes, including the robots. While the Yonex robot continues his invasion of the house, Monique secretly plans with Alice to take down the invader Yonex. Alice excuses herself to the toilet and comes back with a mirror in her hand. She places the mirror in one of her robot's hands and tricks the unsuspecting Yonex into shooting his killer beams at himself. This annoys the Yonex and he sentences them to 20 years in prison. Before he carts them away, Alice asks him to turn their AC back on. Yonex does this by changing the code but doesn't give Alice. In the next scene, the whole group could be seen in the living room trying to cool themselves from the searing heat while the robots watch over them. Monique cajoles Yonex into turning back the AC. Yonex succumbs but with one condition: they must star on their next show titled Homo Ridiculous. They all agree and start acting like lunatics just for the show. Yonex, however, exempts Jennifer from being a cast member. After that, Jennifer throws a tantrum just so she gets to be on TV. After their terrible acting, Yonex turns on the AC to a freezing cold temperature. Later into that night, the group camps together with blankets on. Jennifer asks to be allowed into their respective rooms and Yonex allows her. He then walks to the bathroom to request technical assistance from HQ. Victor whispers some words to the household robots as they all make their way to their respective rooms. Things play out in their respective rooms. Nina and Leo, Jennifer and Victor, Francoise and Greg all doing their thing. Yonix checks out everybody in their own rooms. Meanwhile, Alice and Max have an argument over Alice's creepiness about them being together. Later on, Yonix gets to Monique and Einstein, who stall him downstairs while the others put on ice-cold clothes in order to deceive their Yonix invader. Now that the Yonix was malfunctioning, he makes use of thermal sensors to find out human heat signatures. With the group now in freezing clothes, they manage to surround Yonix as he couldn't see their heat signatures and beat him up. This, however, doesn't work as the Yonix frees himself from their clutch and shoots laser beams at them. He misses all his shots because he was still blind to their heat signatures. He then asks the Einstein robot to help him out. Einstein kept misleading him until the humans paralyze it. Shortly after, they remove its chips. The human group rejoices shortly later and proceeds to the door so they can be freed. Einstein messes with their heads for a while and opens the door shortly. While outside, Leo and Max say goodbye to Nina and Alice. However, as they leave in Max's flying car, Jennifer follows them and an army of Yonix robots arrest Alice, Nina and Victor. Leo jumps down from Max's car to be with Nina. Shortly afterward, a swarm of good robots come by and attack the corrupt Yonix robots, freeing Alice and her family. The next morning, Alice and her family listen to the news about the Yonix robots implicating and executing themselves. After listening to the news, they hear a voice recording from Monique as Nina and Leo repair Tom. Then, they watch Victor and Alice dance to some piano music. The movie ends as Monique's head appears from a drawer in the wall, telling Einstein that they'd be having a good time together. Thanks for watching, guys.